Hi everyone, I'm Julian. I'm your Biology 2600 lab instructor, and in this video I'm going to discuss the Biology 2600 literature assignment. Make sure you read the literature assignment file before watching this video so that everything makes sense. And besides discussing the actual assignment, I'm also going to give you some tips on how to get started. These are going to be mostly for students that haven't done term projects before, so you're welcome to use them, but you certainly don't have to. I'll also mention that later this week, I'm going to upload a presentation by Mrs. Erin Alcott, who is the Science Research Liaison Librarian, and she's going to discuss how to use databases that are available at Memorial University's library to search for journal articles and research articles. So we're going to start by bringing up the literature assignment file, which can be found on Brightspace, and looking at the first line. So this essentially summarizes what your project is. You're going to write an essay that defines and explains an ecological term, and you're going to summarize the recent research related to this term. So if I was a student doing this project, I would start with these 4 steps, and I'm going to talk about these in detail. I'm just listing them here so that you know what they are, and I will also show you specifically what I'm going to talk about so that you know. I'll post these slides at the end of the video as well. So if we go back to the PDF, if you read the second paragraph, you're going to be randomly assigned an ecological term, and this is listed in Brightspace under the last 4 digits of your student numbers. So if we bring that up, so you log in Brightspace, you click on your course, go to Labs and Literature Assignment, then you're going to see a file called Assigned Terms. Click on that and you will see this here. So at the top we have the section number, course registration number, and the time of the slots. So you just find the slot that you're registered for, and then in that column you look for the last 4 digits of your student number. So if you're on Wednesday 2 to 5 and your last 4 digits of your number is 2166, then your topic is bottom-up control. So that was step 1. Then if we go to the next paragraph, it tells you first define and explain your assigned term. Glossary from your textbook is the best resource. So I'm going to list a number of resources that are general and reputable, which are great starting points in order of best to worst. So your textbook is the best one to start with. If you don't have a textbook, that's not a problem. So if you go to Brightspace and we go back to the literature assignment, then right here you will see that there's a link to a textbook PDF. So this is an older ecology textbook, but the definitions are going to be the same. So this is somewhat of a big file, so if you click on it, it might take a few seconds to actually upload. So I've already done that. When you click on it, you will see this. So you want to start by finding the glossary. So if you go to the end of the table of contents, right here, you'll see glossary right here and index right here, and you can actually click on these and it'll bring you to both of those sections. So I'm going to use the example of primary succession as my term for 2 reasons. One, no student was actually assigned this term, so there's no bias. And 2, you're going to be discussing primary succession a fair bit throughout the term. So if we click on glossary, we are brought to the glossary section. So all you do is go down and search for your term. So primary succession is right here. So that's the first part of step 2 completed, defining a term. Second part is actually expanding on the term. So to do this, I would suggest first going to the sections in your textbooks. So if you go back to the end of the table of contents and you hit index, you're brought to the index, and in this case succession is going to be under ecological succession. So you have your page references in the textbook that you can go to and get an idea, more of an idea about succession. So that is one place you can go, and that's where I would start. Other places include some other resources, good resources. So Nature Education Knowledge is published in the Journal of Nature, which is one of the best journals in the world, so definitely reputable. And so I actually had no idea about this reference until one of you guys, Rachel, brought it to my attention. So 5,000 points for Rachel. So if you search Nature Education Knowledge and then your term, you click on the link that comes up, you will see this. So first thing you see is a definition and some good references for that definition. And then, so the great thing about these is that they expand on the topic and give you some information about it. And the reason this resource is wonderful, and I would definitely look at it if I were you, is that it gives you a section down here called Recent Research on Succession. So if you have no idea, if you never heard your term before, which is going to be the case for some of you, this here gives you an idea of the subcategories within your term. So this will be beneficial because then you can look for articles within the subcategory, and those articles will be linked together. And I'll talk more about that in a second. So that's one source. Biology Dictionary Online, biologyonline.com is another one. Type in your term, click search, and then you have a bunch of sources that you can click on. Britannica is another good one. So Britannica, primary succession or your term. Click on the link, and again, this is another good one because you get a nice picture, but also it expands on the topic so that you get an overall idea of the topic, which is useful again if you've never heard about it before. Wikipedia, so don't tell anybody that I'm recommending Wikipedia, but and so most important, do not use Wikipedia in your resources or your references, sorry. So again, to search, you go Wikipedia and your term. The reason you don't want to use Wikipedia is because anybody can change it. I can go in here and say primary succession is, and I can make up my own definition. So you don't want to use it for that reason. The two benefits of Wikipedia is that the language they use to describe the terms is fairly simple. So if you have no idea what your term means, this is a good place to start, and then you can go to other more reputable resources to build on it. They also go over some examples and they go into the topic a bit. The other great advantage is that they actually provide reputable resources down at the bottom. So Biology Online Dictionary, Britannica, the encyclopedias, so these are all reputable resources that you can use. So if you don't even read anything up here, you can still use these resources and go straight to them. So based on that, you should easily be able to complete step 2. You have your definition and you can explain your term. Oh, and down here it also mentions journal articles. These will most likely be review articles. I'll talk more about that in a second, but they will also be a good place to look. So the other thing that we've done is we've kind of completed or gotten a head start on step 3, which is subcategories. So by reading all these resources, you should have an idea of how your term can be broken up into subcategories. And that's going to be beneficial when you start looking for your papers. So before I go further, I'm going to give you an idea. If you haven't actually gotten an idea of subcategories based on the references so far, you can go primary succession reviews, you can go news to get recent articles, you can go topic overview, you can go research and then again you'll have sources here that give you subcategories, and then you can search. So what I mean by subcategories is so if you take primary succession, for example, there's lots of different research on that. So it could be how fast does it occur? How fast does it occur in certain places around the world? Does it occur faster in different climates or different altitudes? Is there different ways of assessing it? What plants can you look at? And so like a huge number of subcategories that you can look at within your term. So once you have an idea of what you're interested in, then you can sort of search towards that. So we've done steps 1 to 3, definition, explaining, and subcategories. The next step is going to be finding your articles. So in terms of your articles, you need 3 and they need to be recent. So 2017 or sooner, they need to be peer reviewed. What this means is that the experts in the field have actually reviewed these articles. They've looked at the experiments, they've looked at the methodology, and they've provided critiques to the original authors, and then the authors have made the necessary changes before actually publishing their articles. They also need to be original research articles, and so I'll point out the difference here between review articles, which is mentioned down here, and original research. So an original research article is when a group of researchers come up with a hypothesis, they developed or use methodology and perform experiments to test that hypothesis, then they have results and they come up with discussions. So they actually perform experiments. In review articles, a number of authors look at original research articles and they summarize them. So in review articles, there is no experiments being performed for the most part. So your articles need to be original research. And also mention here, it doesn't specifically say this, but they need to be ecologically based. So if you search primary succession, I'm sure you can come up with I don't know, religious aspects or other categories of that, and that's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for something that is based in ecology. So the original research can be observational, it could be based on actual experiments, it could be computer modeling studies, etc. And for each paper, you're going to explain the purpose of the research, give a brief overview of the methodology, and summarize the main conclusions. So the whole purpose of me talking about subcategories is that you can find articles that are linked together. So your articles need to be linked in some way. They don't need to be exactly on the same subcategory, but there has to be some way you can link them, because you want to be able to talk about them and compare them, which is what you're going to do in this paragraph down here. So you need some sort of link. So if we're talking about primary succession, maybe you have articles that are performed in the same province, for example, and then you can compare how they did it in one paper versus another, or maybe they're in all different provinces and you can see what the differences are and point those out and elaborate on those. But you need to be able to link them somehow, and that's important. So in your final paragraph, you're going to talk about the links, and you're going to expand on that. And lastly, you're going to go back to your definition and say, based on these articles, should your definition be changed? Should it be modified? Etc. The best assignments are also going to have some sort of synthesis, which is the creation of new information. So there's a little blurb on what synthesis is down here. So to give you an example of synthesis, let's say your first article says that primary succession occurs at a faster rate than normal in Newfoundland, and this was specifically, the research for this was specifically done in Quarterbrook. And then your second article says primary succession is occurring in Marystown, Newfoundland. So for those of you that don't know, another part in Newfoundland. So you have these two bits of information. Synthesis would be finding a way to link them. So you know that you have some evidence saying that primary succession occurs faster in Newfoundland, and then now you know that it's also occurring in another area. So synthesis would be something like primary succession will occur faster in Marystown, Newfoundland. So that would be linking these two pieces of information and creating something new which nobody has said before. So if you do this in your assignment, chances are you're going to do really well. Step 4 is finding your actual articles. I'm going to talk about the way I would do this. Miss Alcock, the presentation that we get from her will be specifically on this, so you'll get a lot more information from there. But I'll just give you a quick snippet of how I would do it. So I would use 2 resources. PubMed. So if you Google PubMed, first thing that pops up, and then you just type your term. So if you have a specific subcategory, you can also type that in here, and then you hit search, and you get a list of most of primary research articles. So you can display them by most recent or by whatever else you want. If you want to look for reviews, you can click reviews over here. And so this is a great place to start. One thing I'll point out is if you happen to come across a paper like so that you don't have access to, so if you click on paper, the link is usually over on the right hand side. So if you click on this, you'll get the abstract, which is free. But if you click on full text, for example, it may say you don't have access and need to log in. So what you do is you just copy your title, and then you go to MUN Library. So you click on MUN Libraries, you click on, go into Research Tools, click on Databases, and the fastest way to get there is by clicking Biochemistry, and then you have PubMed. So in this case, it brings you up to this. So because MUN Library has subscriptions to these websites and journals, once you sign in, you should have access to. So you sign in with your username, password, log in, and then you just, so you can do this initially, but if you haven't done it, you can always do it afterward. Paste your title in there. It's going to pop up. Now, when you click on the link, you should be able to have access. So you click on full text, and now you actually have your whole paper there. If you want the PDF, you can do that, and you have access to it that way. So that would be your first approach. Second one would be using Google Scholar. So again, search your term and a subcategory if you want, and you're going to get all sorts of articles, books, etc. here. You can search custom range, etc. And then you can click on these articles. Again, if you had an issue getting the actual article, you can just go through MUN to get it that way. So now we can cover some of the basic stuff. So this whole project is worth 10% of your final ecology grade. 1% will be when you submit your articles and give us your link during lab 3, when we have a one-on-one discussion. Your project due date is on Monday the 12th, October 26th. The project should be between 1,500 to 2,000 words in length. One of the important things I'll point out is you need to cite information appropriately. So anything that you say that isn't your own idea needs to have a citation and an associated reference. So describing methodologies, findings, definitions, expanding on the topic, all that stuff needs to be summarized. Needs to be cited, sorry. Shouldn't use direct quotations. Figures and tables, you're more than welcome to use them, but they're not required. If you do, make sure they're cited, and make sure you look at your overall grammar, spelling, readability, etc. Not 100% sure if the writing center is open, but you're more than welcome to use that. You won't be penalized in any way if you do. So, if you're curious about specifics on how this assignment will be marked, you can look at the marking rubric. It breaks everything down so you can see exactly where you'll be getting your marks. Again, this is related to the citations. You do not plagiarize. A lot of people, either intentionally or not intentionally, do plagiarize. And there's a lot of strict issues, especially this year where everything's remote and everyone's using the internet even more so. And there's also changed guidelines in terms of the university, so it's getting pretty serious. Make sure you don't plagiarize. If you have questions about that, just ask and we'll let you know. So you need to write stuff in your own words. The best way to do this is to read articles, make some notes, and then write your paper based on your notes. Electronic journals are acceptable. One thing I'll point out is make sure you don't give the URL or website address for this. You actually need to put it in the proper format. I'll talk about that in a second. Oh, and so if you're using, you need at least 3 recent articles, and so you should have 3 recent articles and an article for your introduction. So at the very minimum, 4 references, but you're welcome to use as many as you want. And as long as you have these basic 4, the rest of them don't have to be recent or anything like that. They should be reputable, so government websites, research institutions, university sites, or peer-reviewed journals. And down here we have some specifics on the essay structure with some potential discussion points. So I covered most of this part fairly well. Mentioned that. So the middle paragraph, so the last paragraph related to your articles, again, is how you link them and expand on them. So compare, contrast methodologies. If they're different, you can say which one did things better and why. Can they be applied to other fields, and so on. This just gives you some ideas what you can talk about. And at the end, how did these articles affect your definition? Should it be changed, modified, something added, etc. So down here we have the formatting for the citations and the references. This is based on the journal Ecology Letters. And this is what you should be using for this project and for any of the reports that you're going to be doing. in this course. Examples are shown in blue, so pretty detailed and pretty self-explanatory. Shouldn't have a lot of questions, but if you do, ask. So these are made up just to give you an idea. So single author, just the first name, first two names in the year. More than two, you don't list them all, you just list the first one, and et al. If you have more than one source, you're going to start with the oldest to the most recent. So oldest, and if you happen to have two in the same year, you're going to do it alphabetically. So L comes before T in this case. So that's for your in-text citations. For your references, depending on what they are, the format is here under the heading in black and then your examples in blue. So for journals, for books, chapters in books, for data, and for websites. And that is essentially it. Again, I'm here to help in any way that I can, so just let me know if you need anything.